Hello and welcome to Expedition Essence. You know, that name sounded a lot less pretentious before we found out about all the bizarre laws on the books in this country. Seriously, America, what are you doing? It's like a collective fever dream. But instead of waking up sweating and confused, we're stuck with legislation about donkeys and bathtubs. Over the next few episodes, we're diving headfirst into the weird, wacky, and frankly unbelievable world of strange city laws across the United States. We're talking ordinances so specific, so baffling, you'll be questioning whether you accidentally wandered into a parallel universe. Buckle up, folks, because it's going to be a wild ride. And before we get started, do us a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss a single moment of legal absurdity. Trust me, you need this in your life. It's like a car crash, but for your sense of logic and reason. You can't look away. Our first stop takes us to the great state of Georgia, a land known for its peaches, its history, and apparently, its strict regulations on fried chicken consumption. That's right, folks. In Gainesville, Georgia, if you're caught eating fried chicken with anything other than your bare hands, you're technically breaking the law. Now, you might think I'm exaggerating for comedic effect, but I'm not. This is a real law, passed in 1965, and it's still on the books today. You could say it's a testament to the city's dedication to tradition, or you could just admit that someone, somewhere, had a very specific vendetta against cutlery. Either way, it's peak Gainesville. Honestly, imagine being a tourist in Gainesville. You're excited to try the local cuisine, you sit down at a restaurant, order a big plate of fried chicken, and then, bam! You get arrested for using a fork. Talk about a memorable vacation experience. I can see the TripAdvisor reviews now. Food was great, but the legal system is a bit much. We're still in Georgia, folks, but this time we're venturing into the heart of Quitman, a town seemingly locked in an eternal struggle against the feathered menace known as chickens. You see, in Quitman, it is expressly forbidden for chickens to cross the road, not just at specific times, not just at certain intersections, but anywhere, anytime. Now, I know what you're thinking, John, this is ridiculous. Even chickens have the right to cross the road, and you're right, in principle. But in Quitman, principle takes a back seat to the fear of poultry-induced chaos. One can only imagine the sheer volume of chicken crossings that must have plagued Quitman in its early days to warrant such a drastic measure. Was it a daily occurrence? Did they clog up traffic like a feathery, clucking traffic jam? Were there, dare I say, chicken-related casualties? These are the questions that haunt me. All right, let's talk about Arizona. Land of scorching deserts, majestic canyons, and apparently a deep-seated fear of donkeys taking a bath. You heard me right. In Arizona, it is expressly forbidden for a donkey to sleep in a bathtub. Now, you might think this is just some weird arbitrary law like the one about not being able to have more than 300 tadpoles in your swimming pool at any given time. But no, this law has a story behind it. A story, I might add, that is somehow both more ridiculous and less satisfying than you might imagine. You see, back in the 1920s, there was this thing called the Arizona donkey draw. It was basically a publicity stunt where they'd have a donkey pull a bathtub down a street and people would bet on how long it would take. I know, it sounds like the kind of thing you'd dream up after a particularly strong batch of bathtub gin. Anyway, one year, the donkey, understandably fed up with this whole charade, decided to call it a night, right there in the tub. Chaos ensued, lawsuits were filed, and boom, the no donkeys in bathtubs law was born. A shining example of why we can't have nice things or, donkey-powered bathtub races. Let's be honest, folks, some laws are just plain weird. They make you scratch your head and wonder what on earth the lawmakers were thinking. But then there are laws so baffling, so utterly perplexing, that you can't help but wonder if someone spiked the water cooler at the legislative session. These are the laws that make you question reality itself. Case in point, Eureka, Nevada, where it is, and I cannot stress this enough, illegal for a man with a mustache to kiss a woman. Yes, you heard that right. A mustache can get you in legal trouble. You see, back in the 1870s, Eureka was a booming mining town, full of rough-and-tumble prospectors sporting some truly impressive facial hair. The town was bustling with activity and mustaches were all the rage. We're talking handlebar mustaches that could curl a saloon door and chin straps that could house a family of sparrows. These were not just facial hair, they were statements of identity and pride. Now, legend has it that some of these mustachioed miners were a little too, shall we say, enthusiastic in their affections. Their whiskers were more than just a fashion statement. They were a point of contention. Apparently their whiskers were causing quite a stir among the ladies, and not always in a good way. The women of Eureka had mixed feelings about these facial adornments. Some women complained of scratchy encounters, while others claimed these furry upper lips tickled them in ways that were less than desirable. It was a hairy situation, to say the least. So, in a move that can only be described as a victory for smooth-faced men and a crushing blow to the art of facial topiary, the City Council of Eureka passed a law forbidding men with mustaches from kissing women. It was a drastic measure to address a ticklish problem. Now, you might think this law is as outdated as a rotary phone, and you'd be right. But the fact that it still exists is a quirky reminder of the past. But here's the thing, it's still on the books. Yes, in the year 2023, this antiquated law remains a part of Eureka's legal code. That's right, technically speaking, if you're a man with a mustache passing through Eureka, Nevada, and you happen to steal a kiss from your beloved, you could be breaking the law. It's a bizarre but true fact. Now, I'm not saying the Eureka Police Department has a special mustache-kissing task force just waiting to pounce on unsuspecting couples. But the law is the law, no matter how strange it may be. But still, the fact that this law even exists is a testament to the absurdity that sometimes finds its way into our legal system. It's a quirky piece of history that makes you chuckle and shake your head. It's a stark reminder that beneath the veneer of civilization, we're all just one bad mustache away from chaos. So, next time you see a man with a mustache, remember the kissing crisis of Eureka, Nevada, and smile at the oddities of our world. Mobile, Alabama, home of Mardi Gras, delicious seafood, and a surprisingly strict stance on celebratory projectiles. You see, in Mobile, it is expressly forbidden to throw confetti or spray silly string. That's right, folks. The city that throws a weeks-long party fueled by beads and booze draws the line at tiny pieces of paper and brightly colored goo. Now, you might think this is just a case of post-Mardi Gras burnout, like the city collectively decided they'd had enough merriment for one lifetime. But no, this law has been around for decades, and the reasoning behind it is, well, it's complicated. Some say it's all about the cleanup. Apparently, confetti has a nasty habit of getting everywhere, clogging up gutters, sticking to unsuspecting tourists, and generally being a nuisance. And then there's the silly string. Oh, the silly string. According to some Mobile residents, it's basically the weaponized version of confetti. It gets tangled in trees, sticks to hair, and leaves a sticky residue that's harder to remove than a politician from a lobbyist's payroll. So, in an effort to maintain some semblance of order amidst the revelry, the city of Mobile decided to ban these celebratory staples. And while it's certainly made life easier for the sanitation department, it's also put a bit of a damper on other festivities. Birthday parties? Forget about a shower of colorful paper. Parades? Don't even think about unleashing a barrage of stringy goodness. You see, the law doesn't discriminate between Mardi Gras and a casual Tuesday afternoon. So if you're planning a trip to Mobile, pack your party hats and your noisemakers, but leave the confetti and silly string at home. Unless, of course, you're feeling rebellious. In which case, I say go for it. Just make sure you've got a good lawyer on speed dial. Alright, let's talk about New York City. A place where you can find a rat wearing a tiny top hat riding the subway at 3 a.m. and nobody bats an eyelid. But apparently there are some things even New Yorkers find too outlandish, like, heaven forbid, you're caught dead wearing slippers after 10 p.m. This law, my friends, is about as outdated as a Blockbuster membership card. It's unclear exactly when it was enacted or why, but one can only imagine the city council meeting where this came up. Mayor, the city's going to hell in a handbasket. People are wearing slippers after dark. Slippers, I tell ya. Now you might think this is just one of those archaic laws that nobody enforces. Like the one in Arizona that says you can't hunt camels. Yes, that's a real law, and no, we don't have time to unpack that right now. But surprisingly, there have been actual cases of people getting ticketed for violating the slipper curfew. So, if you're planning a late-night stroll through Central Park, you might want to ditch the fuzzy bunny slippers and opt for some sensible footwear. Unless, of course, you're looking for a story to tell at your next awkward family gathering, then by all means rock those slippers like nobody's business. Next up, we travel to the charming town of Waynesboro, Virginia, where time seems to have stopped somewhere around the early 20th century. This picturesque town with its vintage charm and historic buildings feels like a living museum. And I don't mean in a quaint, let's open a bed and breakfast kind of way. It's more like stepping into a time capsule where the past is still very much alive. I mean, in a women need their husbands to walk in front of their moving vehicles with a red flag kind of way. This bizarre law is a stark reminder of how far we've come, and yet how some remnants of the past still linger. Yes, you heard that right. It's almost unbelievable, isn't it? This law, folks, is about as outdated as a rotary phone. It's a relic from a time when technology and social norms were vastly different from today. It's a relic from a bygone era when women were expected to be seen and not heard, confined to the domestic sphere, preferably while baking a pie and looking decorative. Their roles were limited, their voices often silenced. Apparently, driving a car down Main Street was considered a bridge too far for the delicate flowers of Waynesboro. The idea of a woman behind the wheel was seen as a threat to the social order. Now you might think this law is just a harmless bit of local folklore, a quirky anecdote from the past, something people chuckle about over their morning coffee and grits. It's the kind of story that makes for amusing conversation. And you'd be partly right. It does have a certain quaintness to it. The law is rarely, if ever, enforced. It's more of a historical curiosity than a practical regulation, but the fact that it remains on the books at all speaks volumes about the persistent sexism that continues to plague our society. It's a symbol of outdated attitudes that still have a foothold. It's a stark reminder that progress isn't always a straight line, that the road to equality is often winding and fraught with obstacles. And sometimes it requires us to take a long, hard look at the ridiculousness of the past in order to move forward. Understanding our history is crucial to shaping a better future. Section 2. The red flag of injustice. Why this law still matters. Now, some might argue that this law is just a harmless anachronism, a quaint reminder of simpler times, but nostalgia can often gloss over the harsh realities of the past. But let's be clear, there's nothing quaint about sexism. It's a serious issue that has caused real harm. This law, no matter how outdated or unenforced, is a symbol of the systemic barriers that women have faced for centuries. It's a reminder of the long struggle for gender equality. Imagine being a woman in Waynesboro back in the day. The excitement of owning a car would be overshadowed by the restrictions placed upon you. You've finally saved up enough money for your own Model T. It's a significant achievement, a symbol of independence. You're practically vibrating with excitement to get behind the wheel and experience the freedom of the open road. But wait, there's a catch. You can't just hop in and go. The law requires you to follow an absurd protocol. Oh no, first you have to find your husband, who might be busy with his own affairs, who presumably has better things to do than play glorified crossing guard. It's an inconvenience for both of you. And let's not forget the shame and humiliation of having to be escorted like a child who can't be trusted with a pair of safety scissors. It's a degrading experience. The message is clear. Women are not capable of making their own decisions, even in matters as simple as driving a car. It's a blatant display of mistrust. And that, my friends, is not just ridiculous, it's downright insulting. It's a reminder of the long road still ahead in the fight for true equality. This outdated law is a symbol of the barriers that women have had to overcome, and a call to action to continue pushing for progress. Let's not let the past hold us back. From outdated sexism to, well, outdated common sense, we arrive in Baltimore, Maryland, a city known for its charming harbor, delicious crab cakes, and apparently a deep-seated fear of lions at the cinema. This city, with its rich history and vibrant culture, has a quirky side that might just leave you scratching your head. That's right, folks. In Baltimore, it's illegal to take a lion to the movies. Yes, you heard that correctly. No lions allowed in the cinema. Now you might be thinking, John, this is clearly a joke. Surely this must be some kind of urban legend or a prank. Surely no city would actually need a law against something so absurd. But as it turns out, the world is full of strange and unexpected regulations. And to that I say, oh, you sweet summer child, you underestimate the boundless capacity of humans to do incredibly stupid things. History is replete with examples of bizarre human behavior that defy logic. Because believe it or not, this law exists. It's written down in the annals of Baltimore's legal code, a testament to a time when someone thought this was a necessary precaution. And while the exact origins remain shrouded in mystery, one can only imagine the chaos that must have ensued to necessitate such a specific ordinance. What could have possibly happened to make this law come into being? Was it a one-time incident involving a rogue lion with a penchant for popcorn and jump scares? Did someone actually try to bring a lion into a theater thinking it would be a fun outing for their exotic pet? Or perhaps there was a string of lion-related disturbances at the local bijou, forcing lawmakers to take drastic measures. Maybe there were multiple incidents that led to this law being enacted. Section 2, The Phantom of the Meowvies, Unmasking the Truth. Let's delve deeper into this peculiar piece of legislation. Sadly, the historical record is frustratingly silent on the specifics of this cinematic saga. There are no detailed accounts or official reports that explain the reasoning behind this law. There are no tales of lions rampaging through the aisles, causing mayhem and destruction in their wake. No eyewitness accounts of terrified patrons fleeing for their lives as a pride of lions commandeered the concession stand. It's all left to our imagination. But the fact that the law exists at all suggests that something must have happened. Some event or series of events that led to this unusual regulation. Perhaps it was a preventative measure, a way for city officials to preemptively address a potential public safety hazard. They might have been trying to avoid a catastrophe before it could happen. Or maybe, just maybe, it was all a big misunderstanding. A mix-up that led to a law being passed without anyone fully understanding the implications. Perhaps some well-meaning but woefully misinformed lawmaker overheard a conversation about someone bringing their Leonberger puppy to the drive-in and thought, good heavens, we can't have wild animals running amok at the picture show. And thus, a law was born. Whatever the reason, the Baltimore Lion Law remains on the books, a quirky reminder of the city's legislative history. It's a testament to the enduring power of legislative oddities. These strange laws give us a glimpse into the past and the peculiarities of human nature. A law that's as baffling as it is amusing, and honestly, it wouldn't be America without it. These oddities are part of what makes our history so rich and fascinating. So next time you're in Baltimore, remember to leave your lion at home when you head to the movies. It's just one of those things that makes this city unique. Alright, let's talk about Paulding, Ohio. A town seemingly obsessed with two things: dogs, and finding increasingly creative ways to shut them up. You see, in Paulding, it's perfectly legal for a police officer to, and I quote, bite a dog to quiet it. Now, I'm not a legal expert, but that sounds less like law enforcement and more like something out of a David Attenborough documentary. Imagine Officer Johnson responding to a noise complaint, only to tackle a yapping chihuahua and, well, you get the picture. And before you ask, no, the law doesn't specify a breed or size. So theoretically, Officer Johnson could be facing down a Great Dane with nothing but a sternly worded warning and a set of gnashers. Honestly, if I were a cop in Paulding, I'd be investing in some really good earplugs and maybe a pair of those noise-canceling headphones. Now, to be fair, the law does state that biting is a last resort. Apparently, officers are supposed to try other methods of canine silencing first, like, I don't know, maybe talking to it in a soothing voice, or perhaps playing a recording of whale sounds. But if those options fail, well, then it's bitey time, which honestly raises more questions than answers. Do they get trained in this? Is there a special canine dentistry course at the Paulding Police Academy? And what about the poor dogs? Imagine being a perfectly well-behaved Labrador, just minding your own business, when suddenly Officer Johnson shows up and tries to take a chunk out of your backside. Honestly, the whole thing is just barking mad. Moving on to Blythe, California, a town that takes its footwear very seriously. You see, in Blythe, you're not allowed to wear cowboy boots unless you own at least 2 cows. That's right, folks, it's the Wild West out there. Except instead of saloons and gunfights, it's all about footwear regulations and bovine head counts. Now you might be thinking, John, this is ridiculous. How can you possibly enforce such a law? And to that I say, fair point. Are we to believe that Blythe has a dedicated boot patrol, roaming the streets, demanding to see livestock registration papers before anyone can strut around in a pair of fancy boots? I mean, imagine the scene. Hold it right there, Tex. Those boots look awfully stylish for someone who only owns 1 Guernsey. Show me your cattle or prepare to face the fashion police. Now, one can only assume this law was passed to preserve the sanctity of cowboy culture. Blythe, after all, is a town steeped in Western heritage, and nothing screams authentic cowboy like a strict dress code enforced by, presumably, men with handlebar mustaches and an aversion to oat milk lattes. But what constitutes cowboy boots exactly? Is it the pointed toe? The Cuban heel? The decorative stitching? And what about those trendy ankle boots with the side zipper? Are those considered cowboy adjacent? These are the questions that keep me up at night, folks. Because in Blythe, California, the line between fashion faux pas and criminal offense is as thin as a 10-gallon hat in a hurricane. Well, folks, there you have it. A whirlwind tour of some of the strangest, most baffling laws still on the books in these United States. From chicken-eating etiquette to cowboy boot regulations, we've covered it all. And while some of these laws might seem absurd, they serve as a reminder that truth is often stranger than fiction, and that sometimes the most unexpected things can be found in the dusty pages of local ordinances. So the next time you're feeling down, remember, somewhere out there, a police officer might be preparing to quiet a barking dog with nothing but his teeth. And that, my friends, is a truly terrifying thought. Don't forget to like and subscribe.